Okay. Um, I'm the daughter of a milkman in Adelaide, in South Australia, and very proud of my blue-collar upbringing. Being rich, what does this really mean? The dictionary has a wealth of definitions, including an abundance of valuable possessions or money, the state of being rich, material prosperity, a great quantity of money, valuable possessions, property or other riches. An old school dictionary I found in my bookshelf designed wealth as an abundance of profusion of anything. It is the anything that sits more comfortably with me. I am wealthy and I'm rich, but I have no property of my own. I don't have a car. I live on a minimum salary. I have no superannuation and no pension to secure my retirement. But I do enjoy other great abundance. We have a wonderful opportunity to both redefine and rediscover our sense of wealth. In my mind, wealth isn't just about making money. I'm no academic. I left school when I was 15. I didn't even sit grade 9. So I'm no academic, and my learning has come from the University of Life. I passed many units with credit and distinction. I cheated on some, and I failed to turn up for others. I will take the option to be my bold and brassy self and declare that I have a doctorate in life. My limited research on the topic shows that there may be 7 elements that any person would want to raise to world-class levels before they can be called rich. They are inner wealth, physical wealth, family and social wealth, career wealth, economic wealth, and most of all, adventure wealth. I must admit to achievements in all these areas. Now, inner wealth includes a positive mindset, high self-respect, internal peace, and a strong spiritual connection. Your health is your wealth. What's the point of getting to a great place in your career if you get sick doing it? Why be the best business person in the hospital ward? Why be the richest person in the graveyard? When your family life is happy, no matter its construct, you will perform better in life. No one gets to the end of their life and regrets making their family their first priority. Related to this is the imperative of forging deep connections with friends and members of your personal community, including mentors, role models, and trusted advisors. Actualizing your highest potential by reaching for your best in your career is incredibly important. Getting to greatness in your profession brings a feeling of satisfaction on a job well done. It helps you make your mark. Being world-class in your work is so good for your self-respect. Yes, money is important. Not the most important thing in life, but very important. It absolutely makes life easier and better. Money allows you to live in a nice home, take beautiful holidays, and provide well for those you love. To be fulfilled, each of us needs mystery in our life. Challenge is necessary for happiness, and the human brain craves novelty. And we are creative beings, so we need to be creating constantly if we hope to feel joy. Lots of adventure, ranging from meeting new people to visiting new places, is an essential element of authentic wealth. We see on television and through the print media the things that we should have, and it's difficult to ignore this. For 18 years, I lived a privileged life working in Australian embassies in Phnom Penh, Manila, Bangkok, Tehran, and Washington, D.C. I think that I distinguished myself most in Tehran, where I managed to marry the only alcoholic Shiite Muslim in existence. I could give a whole presentation just about that. I had first-class travel, elegant apartments, maids and security guards, chauffeur-driven cars to work. I enjoyed the social rounds in each country, mixing with diplomats and high government officials. Work was stimulating, working for diplomats, defence attachés and ambassadors. I lived life to the fullest and then some. Then in 1987, I resigned from public service, being a little jaded with the life and political world of Washington. And I went to Sydney to work for the country director of the Chase Manhattan Bank, where I was bored rigid. When I lived and worked in Sydney, I never gave to any charity of any kind. Everything was for me and only me. Then my real life started after I eventually lost my job in 1995 when I was 50 years old. My life took a 90-degree turn and I went back to Cambodia to work for Prince Norodom Ranariddh, the son of King Sihanouk, in his small cabinet office. He was then the first Prime Minister after the UN elections. As fate would have it, during the 70s, he was the landlord of my embassy apartment, and I used to go to his house to pay the rent. We became friends. What a coincidence. Einstein says that coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. There, I answered his English correspondence, did speeches for him, and completed their security and protocol manuals. On the weekends, I spent time with his wife's orphanage, being with the children that were destined to become my life. I didn't know that at the time. Today, I'll talk briefly about all the things I value in my life as wealth and abundance. Many of these definitions of wealth will resonate with you. But most of us here tonight take these things for granted. Let me start with having the unconditional love of a child, never having experienced hunger, being born in a country that has never had a war fought on its territory or been occupied by a foreign power, being able to criticise our politicians privately and publicly without fear of arrest or assassination, knowing that the fire department will arrive to fight a fire in your house without having to pay the fireman in cash first, as you have to do in Cambodia. They're standing there with the hoses with your house burning and they won't turn the water on your house unless you give them $100. Being born in a country that has a reliable, experienced and trained ambulance staff. I think Phnom Penh has 6 ambulances, and if you want them, you've got to book your accidents and the time and where to pick you up. That's how bad it is. And in the daytime, you'll see the ambulances delivering beer to bars to get extra money. So sometimes if you get an ambulance, you're sharing it with half the car with cases of beer. Not having to pay a bribe if taken to an emergency hospital ward. Knowing that I will have power every time I flick a switch. Being able to enjoy a hot bath and not having to wash in a polluted river, like many of Cambodians. Being able to drink tap water without fear of infection, or in some cases even death. Being in a country with a public transportation service to get wherever I want to go. Doesn't exist in Cambodia, no real transportation service. Seeing children that come to Sunrise as abandoned, emotionally and physically damaged, grow up to be balanced adults with university degrees, jobs and family of their own. I can't tell you how happy this makes me. Knowing that I have loyal, loving friends and family. Having had a safe and loving childhood. Being in a country where the right to education is the norm. Being in a country that has a vigorous human rights program, where we have a social welfare program for those in need. There's no social welfare program in Cambodia. Not being confused by religious conviction or the lack of it. you can pray to whoever you want without fear. Knowing that our political elections are free and fair and not plagued by corruption. Being able to travel like I am today, knowing I'm raising money for Sunrise at the same time. Enjoying the creative pleasure of writing my books. Knowing that I am fulfilling my destiny. Waking up in the morning and loving everything that I have to do that day. How many of us can say that? Eventually coming to the realization that stuff does not make you happy. I had all the stuff you could ever want, and I was not happy. Our lives are determined first by the country we are born in. If you were born in the West, your life is going to be pretty much okay. But if you were born in rural Cambodia or the backwoods of Bangladesh, you can be pretty sure that your life will be disadvantaged and will suck. My own desire for life and work is that not a single child in Cambodia will live in poverty. Probably not really possible, but still a great dream for me to have. To achieve this, a certain kind of wealth must be reached. Not the wealth where you can go out and buy a flat TV screen or the latest iPhone. That's material wealth, and it can be given and taken away. I have found that the kind of wealth that can lift a whole section of society out of poverty is not one that can be given. It has to be created. In a country where a huge percentage of people live hand to mouth, giving someone a few extra dollars a week gives them more rice for their kids' bellies, more fuel for their motorbike, more tobacco for the pouch. It might even bring them above the poverty line, but it makes them completely reliant. We know this from our Indigenous people in Australia. It strips them of independence. It is not what will bring every single Cambodian child out of poverty. I want to talk more about the lack of wealth in Cambodia, particularly in the areas of education, wealth and gender equality. It's a very different situation. And to remind you of why everything in Cambodia is in such a shambles, I want to share with you a short thumbnail history of Cambodia. Before 1902, when the country was a French protectorate, Cambodia was an almost unknown, peaceful, rice-growing rural paradise. Under French administration, the people had little power over their day-to-day lives until King Sihanouk negotiated independence in the mid-50s. It was to be a new beginning, but the Cambodians were given very little time to make a success of this new start. The French had installed a perfectly good system of education based on the French system, which basically fell apart with the start of the Vietnam War in 1970. More tonnage of bombs was dropped in Cambodia than in Japan during the entire World War II, under the rural carpet bombing inspired by the Nixon-Kissinger doctrine. More than 1 million innocent farmers and families were killed. Then on top of that are the more than 2 million victims of the genocide program under Pol Pot. From 1970 to the early 90s, the education system was a complete shambles. All the universities and schools were closed down during the war. Nobody went to school. The next step backwards in Cambodia's history was in 1975, when the Khmer Rouge regime took over the country with disastrous effects for almost every Cambodian in the society. In just 4 years, from 75 to 79, under the infamous reign of Pol Pot, anyone who attended a school over the age of 7 or wore glasses was put to death just because they were educated. Teachers, doctors, architects, engineers, lawyers, journalists, artists, public servants, everyone they could find that were pillars of society were assassinated or put in labour camps where they died of starvation. All money was burnt. Even the family unit was destroyed, with husbands, wives and children being separated and put to work in labour camps, divided from each other. Pagodas were burned, religion was abolished, monks were murdered. Libraries, all books, and even the register of births, deaths and marriages were burned. Records of land titles were also destroyed. People were reduced to an animal-like level, often with farm animals being fed more food and treated better than they were. I have a girlfriend who's my age who was in one of the labour camps, and she told me she prayed to Buddha that she could be a cow so that she could eat grass, because when she tried to eat grass, she got sick, but the cows could eat grass. Out of a population of 7 million in 75, an estimated 2 million, 1/3 of the population, were killed through assassination, starvation, torture and hard labour. Never in recorded history had a population of people been so completely decimated and destroyed by their own people. It could be compared to what the Germans did to the Jews in World War II, but this time it was Cambodians doing it to Cambodians. And a new word was entered into the Webster's Dictionary: auto-genocide. Even today in modern Phnom Penh, there is no one who has not lost a close family member, or if they survived, are living with memories so tormented that many of them cannot function normally. It is not an exaggeration to say that all the survivors of the killing fields of 75 to 79 are suffering in various degrees from post-traumatic stress disorders, depression, insomnia, and none of these can be treated because there are very few psychiatrists or psychologists in Cambodia because they were all killed. Then in late 79, the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese, not the South Vietnamese, who fought and lost the war against communism, marched on Cambodia and liberated them by ousting Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge from power. But the terror was not over for the Cambodians, who were then subject to the very communism that they fought so hard to resist before Pol Pot ruined their lives. Under the Vietnamese occupation from the 79 to 92, communism was forced upon them, and again, they were not masters of their own fate. The Vietnamese, to be fair, recognised the need for the people to be more educated. But because there was no one left alive to do this, they shipped those considered to be capable to other communist countries like China, USSR, Poland and Czechoslovakia, where they learned under the communist way. They came back with degrees. Slowly, the deserted schools and universities began to awaken and take in students. But it was not until the United Nations came in to supervise the departure of the Vietnamese in 1992 that the education system was free to try and organise itself from the ashes. Still today, no Cambodian university degrees are recognised internationally. Imagine how that holds back a whole population. But with the terrors of the Pol Pot days still ringing in their heads, the people were afraid to embrace education. To them, they heard from their parents and grandparents that to be clever was dangerous, very dangerous. At the government primary schools, Sunrise often has to provide desks and chairs for them because the school has no money. This is in the rural areas. Schools of over 2,000 children that sometimes are only 2 toilets with no running water. Just think about that for a minute, 2,000 kids sharing 2 toilets. The main reason why girls stop attending school is for the very simple fact that when they start to menstruate, they have no suitable toilet facilities so that they stay at home. The whole education system is an area where Cambodia has to make huge steps forward before it can come out of the mist. There are no computers, no electricity, no air conditioning, no canteens, no playing fields. I'm getting depressed here. No extracurricular activities, no substitute teachers, and not enough books for everyone. and any misbehaviour is punished with a firm swish of a long bamboo cane. We don't practice capital punishment at the orphanage at all. We don't even hit our kids, but when they go to school, they are hit, and there's nothing we can do about it. If you believe in reincarnation, you would definitely hope that you do not come back as a child in current-day Cambodia. If education is a measure of wealth, then Cambodia is one of the poorest nations in the world. Cambodia has one of the highest child mortality rates in the world. 35% of the population lives below the poverty line, subsisting on less than $1 a day. 64% of girls never enter primary school. 12% of 10 to 14-year-olds are in the labour force. And 70% of the population has no access to clean water. The rural population is 80%. Life expectancy has improved significantly in the last decade, is up from 54 to 69 for women and 65 age for men. 30 out of every 1,000 children die before the age of 12 months. This is from things like TB, dengue fever, HIV, that kind of thing. 2% of government expenditure is allocated to education, only 2%. 120,000 people live with HIV. I've got HIV kids. They get the free medication and they're all doing well. 40% of all children don't go beyond primary school, and very few enjoy preschool opportunities. Only the rich can send their kids to nursery schools. The GNP per capita is 880 US per year, and 18.4% of adolescents are married, often because they cannot be fed and cared for by their own families and are forced to make their own way in the world by getting married. There is an enormous gap between the rich and the poor in Cambodia. There's a Rolls-Royce dealership in Phnom Penh with plenty of buyers, and early this year, a Phnom Penh tycoon spent $1 million on his wedding reception, and each guest was presented with keys to a new car at the end of the night. This is obscenity in a country like Cambodia. It is rare to see children of kindergarten age playing constructively, as they don't have toys we are familiar with, and their parents have also had no experience of playing with toys when they were young. Children play happily for hours with rubber bands, kicking thongs, coconut shells and old bicycle spare parts. A good education for primary age children, even for those whose families can afford to pay, is seriously limited because the salaries of teachers is as low as $120 a month and does not attract people to want to study educational courses at local universities when they leave school. Who wants to study 4 years and only earn $120? Most children grow up in an environment of impoverishment in every sense of the word. The Sunrise School bus drives past many families, farmers working in the fields, and the kids wave and they smile at us, but you can see the longing in their eyes to be on that bus with us going to school. For many of them, school is just a dream. At Sunrise, we care for many abandoned babies from local hospitals and have a good working relationship with many hospital staff. Parents of a sick child often have to sell a cow to get the taxi money to take their kid to the hospital. Then one of two things happen. If the child recovers, they are told that the child could get sick again and they don't have another cow to sell. So it's not through lack of love, or the doctors say the child is very sick and may die. Again, the parents have no money to pay for a funeral and they are abandoned. The hospitals ring us, we take the kids. Some of them only live a few months because of their illnesses, but they get love for those few months and they get a dignified Buddhist funeral. That's the least we can do. And it's not through a lack of love from their parents, it's just desperation. Part of our program in Cambodia is to provide residential care for kids with HIV, TB, polio, hepatitis B, brittle bone disease, acquired aplastic anemia, which is a blood cancer caused from the spraying of Agent Orange during the war, varying degrees of cerebral palsy, mental and emotional condition. These kids will be with us for life because they don't have the capacity to study or get a job. Cambodia can be a dangerous, depressing, dirty and difficult country, but for some unknown reason I will never leave this magical country. One story that is quite old now, I don't need my notes for this. We have a boy called Lai Tai. He came to us when he was 9. His mother sold him in Thailand into a begging ring because he had cerebral palsy and he couldn't walk properly. He was very crippled. Brain sharp as a tack, but he was crippled. Eventually, through the International Office of Migration, they round up kids that they know are from Cambodia. They put them in the immigration prison, and then they send them back to Cambodia where they select orphanages like ours. Lai Tai came to us when he was just a little bit over 9. And his personality captured everybody, and we all adored him. And every year I do files on each kid to send to the sponsors saying, you know, what the kid is doing, and it's, you know, your favourite colour, your favourite food, your best friend, what do you want to be when you grow up, sort of pretty boring stuff. And I wanted something a bit more sexy. So I asked all the kids, if you had half an hour with Buddha, what would you ask him for? And the boys are saying motorbikes and computers and cars. The girls are saying jewellery, a lovely house, a rich husband. And I'm writing all this down. And I got to Tai, and he's sitting there in the chair, swinging his crippled legs. And I said to him, okay, Tai, what would you ask Buddha for? And he said, oh, Mum, he said, Buddha's so busy and important, I don't want to bother him. I don't need anything, I don't want anything. And I said, darling, I've got to put something on this form for your sponsors. There's got to be something you want. And he looked up at me and he said, well, Mum, there's one thing. If Buddha could help me be a good person in this life, maybe in the next life, I will have a mother who loves me and I can run like the other children. Maybe, if I'm good in this life, I'll have a mother again in my next life. He was 9, he's now 21, and he's a chef in a 5-star restaurant. Sorry to keep up with the sad stories, but I'm trying to paint a picture for families and children in Cambodia and those at Sunrise. One of my greatest failures was a few years ago. I was in the local market where I'm very well known, and I was buying silk and silver to take back to Australia to sell at fundraising affairs. And my silk lady said, she said, Geraldine, there's a little boy abandoned on a noodle stall. We've called him Noodles. Maybe you can take him to Sunrise. So she took me to this stall. This man and woman are cooking noodles. And I looked in the eyes, lovely big black eyes of this 8-month-old baby boy. And I was leaving the next day. I didn't have time to do the arrangements. And I said to him, Noodles, I'll come back to you in a week. I returned in a week. And I went to the market to find that while I was away, his eyes had been harvested, cut out, and sold to the black market organ business for the highest bidder for his retina. And he was eyeless, completely blind. I lost it at the market. I was smashing plates and glasses and yelling and screaming, sending for the police. And while I was doing this, the people packed up and left with Noodles, and I never saw him again, and I don't know what happened to him. I'll never forgive myself for this. This is a boy that I failed. And if I come across kids like that now, arrangements being made or not, I will take them. I have learned from losing Noodles. And there are more extreme cases where street kids have been taken away and had their organs like hearts and lungs, taken to sell on the organ black market, and their bodies are just thrown in the river. Street children don't have family to complain to the police that they are missing, so they just disappear because no one bloody cares. Some stories of more sunrise kids is from a boy, 16-year-old boy. He was helping me in the office one day, bright as a tack. He asked me with tears in his eyes, "Why did my mother throw me away?" And I could only respond with a hug. How can you answer a question like that? Another teenage girl who has deep post-traumatic disorder problems said she dreams every night of her dead mother, and she feels unloved. I told her that I love her, and she said, "Yeah, but you love everybody. I want just one person to love only me." And isn't this what we all want? And how can you forget that there is a thriving market here for men to have sex with disabled children? I was down at Riverside one night, which is sort of like the tourist area, and I was in a bar waiting for my guests to come for dinner, and I saw these two Americans at the bar banging the table and shouting at each other. And I went over and I said, "I live here. Have you had a problem? Have you been robbed? What's the problem?" And they said, "No," they said, "we're Rotarians from America and we're here building wells in villages." And just outside this restaurant, the man came up with a laminated folder of disabled children, double amputees, blind kids, mentally disturbed kids. And they said to us, "You want sex with one of these children? You let us know." I couldn't eat my dinner. I went home, and the next day I went to the Ministry of Interior, where I have a friend, a middle-aged woman who works in the anti-child trafficking area. And I went and I said, there's trafficking going on down at the Riverside. Kids, disabled kids being sold for sex. You've got to send your plainclothes cops down there and break this up. And she looked at me, this big, tough Cambodian soldier, with tears running down her face, and she said, "Geraldine, we know all about it. We can't do anything because the police are getting their cut." And these are occasions where I go home, I have a triple gin and tonic and bang my head against the wall. I just have to keep on telling myself not to look at the big picture, but simply do the best I possibly can for the kids whose fate it is to walk through sunrise gates. If you looked at the big picture, you would slash your wrists. Time for some good stories. Okay, I do have some good stories. Pektra was 16 and only in grade 5, and his camp is a row of tents. He's very gay, and he was only in grade 5 because he played truant. Nothing wrong with his intelligence. So I said to him, "Darling, you'll be 30 by the time you get to grade 12, so how about you leave now? I put you into a beauty course, vocational training for beauty." So we put him in this course for a year, and after a year I had lunch with him in town, and I said, "Okay, Pektra, how's life?" And he said, "Mum," he said, "I'm working for the biggest movie company in the country. I travel all over the country where they pay for my rent, my electricity, my food, all my costs, and I get $800 a month for doing the hair and makeup for the most beautiful and famous actresses in Cambodia." And then he said, "And I didn't need maths, physics, or science for that." And yeah, that's for Pektra. He's actually earning more than my qualified lawyer or civil engineer. So I go back to the kids and I say, anything is possible. Over the years, I've been fortunate to secure scholarships for some students to study in Australia who have now returned with degrees in nursing, media communications, hotel management, hospitality, and working in good jobs back home. The majority have attended universities in Sydney, Adelaide, and Brisbane. In Phnom Penh, we have young people studying bachelor degrees at local universities. We get them scholarships, and they're doing law, medicine, civil engineering, architecture, agriculture, banking, social welfare, international relations, finance, administration, and management. And these are the next generation who will be able to bring Cambodia into the future and make it wealthy. Sunrise also provides vocational trainings for kids that don't pass grade 12 to be car mechanics, air conditioning repairmen, engineering, plumbers, electricians, mobile phone repairers, chefs, and beauty therapy. A far better option than life on the street. No kid leaves Sunrise without a university scholarship, vocational training, or a job, something I'm really, really proud of. My oldest boy is 45, because he was 18 when I first went there, 25 years ago. And he's got a job at the airport, quite senior at the airport. And every time I'm travelling, I ring him and I say, darling, Mum's going to be on the Malaysian flight to KL at 4 o'clock tomorrow, and I've got lots of excess baggage, so I'm not paying for it. You be at the check-in counter. And he says, okay, Mum, I'll be there. So I haven't had to pay excess baggage for years. I just have to make sure he's there. Cambodians are now accessing the internet, and the children often talk to me about what they see and hear. It's an uphill job assuring them of a good future when they are constantly being reminded on international news of man-made mayhem, madness, murder, misery, violence, sexual deviance, crime, drugs, disease, terrorism, war, economic crises, political disturbance, corruption, cruelty, religious intolerance, racism, homophobia, terrorism, suicide bombers, and Mother Nature's way of saying she is very unhappy with us, with famine, global warming, earthquakes, tsunamis, typhoons, floods and fires. Mother Nature is not happy with us. Several years ago, I was on an ABC show in Australia called Talking Heads, and it's a half-hour one-on-one interview. And the next day, I got an email from a friend of mine from one who used to work with Chase Manhattan Bank, and she said, "Oh, Geraldine, you've got to know how some people see you in Australia." She said, "My most important client," I had lunch with her yesterday, and she said, "Did you watch Talking Heads last night? That silly lady with the hairstyle and the red hair was on. Can't stand her. She's pushy, aggressive and loud." And she said, "You've got to know, this is how you're seen by a lot of Australians." And I wrote back to her and I said, "What are you talking about? They're my attributes. If people don't know who you are, where you are, what you're doing, and how to get money to us, then we would die in the water. So loud, pushy and aggressive I will always be to the day I die." In the past, Sunrise was a residential facility only, providing the best possible care for children in need. This now has changed. Although we will always have children in our care, the disabled and trafficked mostly, we are now tackling the great need in Cambodia for community-based development facilities to community children, where they come to attend nursery school, English, computers, math, music, sport and art. These are children live in rice families close to our centres. They go to the government school in the day, and the other day they come back and they get all this from us. And some of these farming kids are getting better education than the kids who are living in town. But our core business now is education. I left school, as I said, when I was 15, didn't even pass grade 9, so that's why education to me is important to give my kids. We know, as Nelson Mandela once said, that education has the power to change the world. Never forget that. The terms orphans and orphanages have been generally acceptable words to describe the approach taken across the world to care for vulnerable children. We now know that institutional care is not the best way to care for an orphaned or abandoned child. They suffer from being separated from their extended families and local communities, often making them dysfunctional in their adult lives. Sunrise is supporting UNICEF in its worldwide program to close orphanages and replace them with alternative models of care such as foster homes. Excuse me. Child and family assessments by the government and our own social workers are doing everything possible to reintegrate kids back into their families and communities. We continue to pay for their education and visit regularly and provide crisis care when required. We enrol many adults in their family into vocational training and offer microloans to help the family establish a business and improve the income, thereby raising the living standard of the whole family. In some cases, we repair houses and provide adequate kitchens and bathrooms that previously did not exist. And this year alone, we have reintegrated almost 70 children. It breaks my heart to see a child go, but that's the way UNICEF wants the world to go. They want to close all orphanages and send children back to their communities. This will be an ongoing project aimed at bringing children and what is left of their families closer and closer together. Not all these reintegrations are successful. Sometimes parents don't send them to school, and some have sold their bicycles and laptops that we gave them to take home. Nothing I can do about it. Everything in life is about change, and this is no exception. Sunrise has embraced this new world way of thinking, and we are working hard to achieve all the challenges involved. I'm not supposed to use the word orphans or orphanages when I speak. One of the most rewarding and exciting things I've ever done in my life was to get out of my comfort zone. Before I moved to Cambodia, I had a very comfortable and privileged lifestyle, but all that changed in Cambodia. You will never know what you are made of and what you can achieve until your back is against the wall. 25 years ago, if you told me what I've achieved, I would have laughed at you. But you've got to get out of your comfort zone to find out about what you can really achieve. The most dangerous time of my whole life was in 1997. There was a military coup where the military ousted the royal family, and the orphanage was under threat because where we lived at the time had previously been a military barracks, and the soldiers wanted their land back. So they came out on a tank, 6 soldiers on a tank with B-40 rockets and AK-47 machine guns. And they were pointing their guns at the children saying, "Leave, this is our land." And the kids are kneeling in the dust, praying, crying for them not to be killed. Some of the kids wet their pants with fear. That's what it was like. I was there that day. And when I'm angry, my Khmer language gets to be very good. And some of these soldiers were only like 21 or 22, and I was saying, "Does your mother know what you're doing here today?" And it was just going straight over their heads. They didn't get it. And the kids are pulling me by my dress because they were afraid I was going to get shot. And then the leader leant forward and he really looked at me up and down. And he put his gun down and he nudged the soldier next to him, pointed at me, whispered, and the next one put his gun down and nudged the soldier next to him, and they were all staring at me like this. And then they just got on the tanks and left. Nothing happened. And the kids and I ran back to the dining room and we were laughing and crying, and I'm saying, "What are you laughing for? We almost got killed there." And the older boys said, "Mum, it was your hair that saved us." And I said, "What are you talking about?" They said, well, you might not know this, but Cambodians are a delightfully childish race of people, very superstitious. They believe in ghosts and witches and potions and spells, the whole lot. And the boys told me, in Cambodia there's a very, very famous witch that wives go to when their husbands are unfaithful. And this witch is famous for turning their husbands' penises to the size of a pea. And she's got very bright red hair. There's no one in Cambodia with hair this colour, and the boys reckon that the soldiers thought, "Well, we're not taking any chances here." I travel with my henna hair colour. I'm never without it. It's my security blanket. I pity those who spend their whole lives being safe and comfortable, never knowing what they can really be. Take my word for it. Try it. I've got so many really good close friends that had a loving family life, got a university degree, got married, had children, I've got grandchildren, but they've never found out what else there is out there for them. And I pity them. When I first moved to Cambodia and took a group of vulnerable war orphans into my care, I only had 24 kids then, I had a crude idea of how the children and families in my care could attain the kind of personal wealth that I hold so dear. If I gave them these things, education, opportunity, infrastructure and security, they would grow up to be as wealthy as me. So I gave them a roof, I put them in school, I took them to the doctors, I protected them and cared for them and filled them with love, respect and belief that they could be whoever they wanted to be. And for these children and families, it was enough. The stories of success that have come out of the kids and families I have cared for are incredible. Trust me, if you saw firsthand how a child is born with nothing, grasps at a small opportunity and just runs with it, you would give up everything to put these kids through school, through university, and see what they can become. But this method, this giving out of first world freedoms and rights, helps only the kids that they are given to, and it only helps them in retrospect. They wouldn't have gone through the very hardships that brought them to me in the first place. When I realised this, I knew things had to change. I've been called many things. I'm a humanitarian, a hero, a witch, that pushy red-haired woman who always asks me for money. Some of these are a lot truer than others, and I'll leave it to you to figure out. But something that I'm rarely called is flexible. Stubborn pig-headedness and tenacity have got me everything in life. It got me my ticket out of Australia as a young woman to travel. It stopped me from being fired more than once. It gave me the strength to rescue a group of war orphans from the border of Thailand and demand that they have the right to a life that is good and fair and filled with love. But for once in my life, I was flexible and changed my focus. Instead of treating the symptoms of poverty, corruption and war, I would work on the cause. Instead of giving a boy or a girl a fish and a family a home, I would make sure that the opportunity to learn how to fish was accessible and available to them. In the early years, I refused to pay sponsors money on public relations or a publicist. You don't want to give me $50 a month, and for me to give that to a publicist to market my professional speaking. So what I did when I was in Australia, I would ring up universities, architectural, dentists, doctors, great big corporations that I knew had an annual conference. And I'd say, hello, my name is Mandy Smith. I'm the publicist for Geraldine Cox at Sunrise. And I know you have a conference this year, and if you invite her to be a speaker, you won't be disappointed. She's amazing. Here's her number. And I'd go back to Cambodia, and I'd often get a call, and they'd say, can we speak to Geraldine? Can we speak to Mandy? And I'd say, I'm sorry, Mandy's on leave. It's Geraldine here. Can I help you? And I've often got jobs for speaking this way, and it's all due to Mandy. And what I love about Mandy, she's always there. She does what she's told and doesn't cost me any money. Wow. W-A-E-W. This is a girl in Cambodia. Her mother sold her, again over the border into Thailand, into a begging ring, where after she was about 7 or 8, she can't remember exactly, where after a while, she lived in a big house with a whole lot of beggars that were taken out in a truck every morning and put at the market, then picked up at night and taken home. And she wasn't getting enough in her tin. So they held her down and burned her face and her body with a blowtorch. She lost an eye and an ear. She has horrible facial and body burns. She's actually quite grotesque to look at. And then, no medical care, next day out on the street again begging. And apparently she still wasn't getting enough money. And one night, the truck didn't pick her up. She's 7 or 8 years old. She didn't know how to get home. And then after a while, the Austrian consul found her in the streets and saw the state that she was in. And he took her to the hospital, did what surgery he could do, and then he put her in a Thai orphanage. And after a while, the Thai orphanage could hear that she was not a Thai. So they put her in the immigration prison, where you don't want to know what happened to her there. And eventually the Office of International Migration got her out, and she came to Sunrise. She was 10 when she came to us. She couldn't speak her own language. We couldn't send her to school because she was too badly affected. The children would have made terrible fun of her and caused her a lot of pain. So I got her a private public school teacher to come into Sunrise every day and teach her one-on-one. After a year, this amazing little girl was ready to go into the public school system and was put immediately into grade 3. And you can tell at grade 3, she was one of these kids that knew education is the only thing that's going to lift her up in the world. She went through, she passed grade 12. She's now doing her second year degree in international relations. But before she went into the society to do uni, she was protected by us. We all loved her. The local schools knew her, the local market knew her. But when she was in Phnom Penh and going to the markets in the street, she said, "Oh, Mum, people point at me and call me ugly and a monster, and it's bad." And I said, "Darling, how do you cope with this every day, people doing this to you?" And she stood up very straight and she said to me, "Mum, I turn to these people and I say, what I look like is not who I am." She was recently invited to go to Geneva. She went to Geneva as the keynote speaker to talk at the International Burn Survivor Conference, and she got a standing ovation. She is incredible. Her name, Wow, is really who she is. She is Wow. Nothing is going to stop this girl. I'm totally unqualified to do what I'm doing. I have no university degree. If I approached Australian authorities to work with children, I'd be asked for my teaching, nursing, social welfare degree, and I have none of these. I simply do what every parent does for their child. Shelter them, feed them, clothe them, educate them, keep them clean, take care of their medical needs, discipline them and teach them the difference between right and wrong, protect them, comfort them, wipe away their tears, hug and kiss them, play with them and make them laugh, encourage them, fight their battles for them, teach them to be compassionate and caring, teach them to be kind to animals, protect them, make them feel safe, support them, find their talents and nurture them, forgive them, believe in them, teach them tolerance, trust them, guide them, and tell them that they have a future. Love them and tell them that you will always be there for them. That's what every mother and father does. That's what you will do when you have children. If you do not, but you don't have to run off to the jungles of Cambodia to find your purpose in life. You can find your wealth of a different kind in many ways. It can be bringing up a healthy and loving family. It can be in service to the community. It can be in the corporate world, closing big business deals. It can be in the world of academia. It can be in music or the arts. It can be through research. It can be through sport. It can be through medicine and healing. It can be in politics. It can be in your religion. A man who has done more than any of us to dream to achieve, put it simply, again Nelson Mandela, said in his 1994 inaugural speech in Africa, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. We just don't know it." If you remember anything that I've told you today, please know that the greatest currency you will ever possess is how you affect others in the world. People might not remember your name or what you look like, but they will remember how you made them feel. So please always remember to be kind. The Sunrise community know I'm here today raising money and hoping to motivate you, and they've asked me to pass on a blessing to all of you. So Sunrise Kids wish all of you here long life, health, strength, wisdom, and what we need most in the world, they wish you peace. When I pointed this out to some of the children that wealth was not on the list, one of my 12-year-old boys stood up and said, "Mum, if you've got long life, health, strength, wisdom and peace, you're already wealthy. You should know that." And I love how Cambodia's kids has taught me far more than I could ever teach them. In closing, my challenge to you is twofold, one inward and one outward. First, you have an opportunity. Chances are by now you've acquired material wealth. You've acquired career wealth. This will be on different levels, of course, and you may not have reached your goal in any or all of these areas, but you are far ahead of most Cambodians born at the same time as you. Concentrate now on your inner wealth. Concentrate on your relationships. Challenge yourself to do whatever your heart yearns to do. Take risks and love big, because you have the opportunity to do all this. My second challenge is this: you have an obligation. Through no fault of your own, you were born into the top 5% of the wealthiest people in the world. It's not your fault. But if you do nothing to spread this wealth more evenly, this world will continue to falter. It's been a long journey for me to get to this point, to this understanding of wealth, and it began with me discovering what wealth truly means on a personal level. Right now, as I stand here, I am the wealthiest woman in the world. If this resonates with you, catch up with me later. Money is still one way that the real wealth of Cambodia can develop. Where you spend your money discloses your true values and what you hold most important. My website is sunrisecambodia.org, and if any of you can afford $50 a month, it will feed a child for 28 days. One last thing I want to tell you is a lot of you here today know what you want to do, you're comfortable with what you're studying, but some of you may not be really sure if what you're doing is what you really want to do and who you want to be. So for those of you who are not sure, of course, listen to your counsellors at uni, listen to your mentors, listen to your parents. Sometimes your parents just want you to do what they couldn't do. So be careful of that one. But most of all, do what your heart tells you, because that's the thing that knows you better than anybody. So I wish you all luck with your studies and your future, and thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
I actually volunteered in teaching the children in rural area over past years. So there was a little girl with autism, and she doesn't speak, she doesn't smile, she even beaten by her family because she is a girl.
I know autism well.
Yeah, and then after years, after so many communication with her family, things go well. But I was sad because I saved one children, but there are so many children need help in this world.
I know. Autism is close to my heart. I have an adopted Cambodian daughter who also has very advanced autism. Yeah. In Cambodia, they don't even know what autism is. Far less do they know how to treat it. Yeah. And when I've talked to child psychologists and say, we've got autistic kids, what can I do? There are no centres for them to go to. And they've said, love them, hug them, keep them busy. And that's all that I can do because there are no facilities for them in Cambodia.
But what can you do when you feel powerless? Because there's so many people need help.
I feel powerless because I'm powerless. I'm not a qualified psychologist, and autism is something I know really, really well. To discipline a child with autism, to have them love you or feel gratitude is very, very hard. They won't be able to grow up to have relationships and marry because they don't understand life with another person. Yeah. So it's an area of great frustration for me, as I know it is for you, but I can't solve it for you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Thank you.
Take a question over here now.
Hi, I'm Kai Stahl from
Where
Australia.
are you?
Yeah, just over here.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kai from Australia.
Yeah.
I'm studying at UCS.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your eye-opening speech. It's inspirational. It's an understatement. As for my question, with the nature of these type of problems or issues, it's pretty common for people to focus on the things they can't do or the people they can't help. Seeing the bigger picture. And I know you touched on the idea of not doing that. So do you have any personal experiences or advice that you could pass on to help conquer that mindset?
I am often frustrated, sad, angry and depressed because no matter how much I do or how many kids I help, there's another 100 knocking on the door to come in. So I take solace in my friends. I have a little drink now and then, and I try and take a holiday every year. But it doesn't matter how long I live or how much I help, it will never be enough. So a little G&T every now and then is a big help. Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
Take one over this side, thank you.
Hi, my name's Vivian. Oh.
Here? Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah. Getting exercise today.
I'm from America, but I study occupational therapy at Bond University in Australia.
Yeah.
And I want to be a pediatric occupational therapist, and one day you, hopefully. My question for you is that when working with children with trauma, how do you best approach building rapport and building trust?
When I realised how many kids I had with emotional problems, there were no psychiatrists, child psychologists at all to help me with that. So I contacted a friend who's a child psychologist in Australia and said, look, what can I do? What can I do? There's no one qualified to help me. And they said to me, physical touch, hugging, and most of all, keep them busy. Don't give them too much time to reflect. Keep them busy. So my kids are the busiest bloody orphans in the whole country. Because I do have a lot of kids that you can tell are sitting and thinking things you don't want them to think. So that's the best I can do. Love them, hug them, kiss them, and keep them busy.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll keep your steps up, Geraldine. We'll take one from this side now.
Yep, hello, Geraldine. On behalf of everyone, I'd like to say thank you very much. You are the most inspirational person I've ever heard, so thank you. So my name is Mohammed. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. And so recently I've established an organization with my friend. He's a Ugandan refugee and orphan. His name is Usman Sudais. So we are trying to build an orphanage in Uganda. There's over 2.5 million orphans in the country and 68,000 from the district where he grew up. So, and at the beginning, your statement of reintegration, I really like that. But the problem I have with reintegration, this is something we've discussed, is that it's very hard to do because these children have nobody, you know? And what's even worse is that the people in the community don't have the resources to really stick with them and cherish them like I believe people in Western countries with the resources can do. So what we're trying to do, and hopefully we can, is to basically integrate the community with our projects, so we can basically give these kids a home but also an education. And if there's extra room, get kids in the community to also attend the classes. And so that was my problem with integration.
I sympathise with you because my experience has been when the kids have no parents, we look for foster families. And the first thing the foster family says, how much do I get?
Yeah, that's the problem
Right.
that we face. Like,
And if a child is put in a foster home where there are other blood children of the parents, they are never treated the same.
of course.
And often they just take the children to get the money, to help them work in the kitchen and in the rice fields. And I'm not a real fan of foster families. Even in Australia and other countries, there's a huge percentage of fostering families that abuse the children. And I'm afraid this can also happen. So when you're looking for foster families, you really need to be careful to get right, kind and loving people. The only foster families that I've had that have worked have been childless couples that don't have other children. So I wish you luck with your program, and I really understand what you're fighting up against.
Yep. And I really hope after this we can have a conversation.
Okay, I'm around.
From you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
I'm here.
We might take another one from this side, and then we'll take two from this side. So we'll start off here. Oh, all right, we'll start off over here.
Where? Here? Yeah, okay.
My name's Ashley. I'm from the University of Newcastle in Australia,
Yes, we
like the
spoke
rest
earlier.
of us.
Yeah, yeah.
My question is to do with, I guess, domestic fundraising. I'm sure you've heard of Live Below the Line, which is a campaign that is run in Australia that is $1 a day, you stimulate it and you raise money that way. They claim to do work for education in Cambodia. My question is, do you have experience with how much that kind of large-scale organisation who raises a lot of money, what they're doing? And in your opinion, what do you actually think is the most effective way that people can domestically use themselves to help fundraise towards these causes?
I haven't heard of this organisation. There's many of them similar to this. You know, in Australia there are 60,000 charities. So I'm competing with 60,000 other charities. And it's very, very hard to find people that first know where Cambodia is, like the country, understand its history and its need. I'm fighting an uphill battle there. I don't know the organisations that this charity you're talking about helps. It does help with tax deductibility. If donors are getting tax deductibility, that's an absolute necessity.
Yeah.
Another thing I'm trying to do is to get big corporations to sign up for staff giving programs, where a member of the staff says, okay, take $50 from my salary, and then the company matches that, so I get 100. So that's a fairly new thing in Australia, trying to get corporations interested in investing in their staff giving.
Yeah.
So if your organisation that you talk about hasn't investigated that, that's a really good way of starting what you want to do.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thanks.
We'll take another one from this side, Geraldine, so you don't have to walk away.
It's all good.
Hi Geraldine,
Hi.
my name's Geordie. I'm representing University of Tasmania in Australia. And I firstly just wanted to say thank you for being such an incredible woman, and you've inspired not only me but everyone in the room for sure. I have a question based on the logistics of Sunrise. Do you have any other volunteers or staff members helping you? And if so,
Yep.
how do you go about choosing the special people to help you?
All our staff are Cambodian. I'm a big believer of giving the Cambodians a job. In the past, we've had good volunteers, but now UNICEF are banning, or not banning, but asking people not to accept volunteers. Several reasons for that. Sometimes volunteers attract people who want access to children for reasons that are not good. The second one is sometimes well-meaning kids, so on a gap year, for instance, or a middle-aged woman going through a divorce wants to come for a year, teach computers or English. That's great, and I have had good ones. But the problem with that is after a year or 6 months, when that person goes, they've already built up relationships with the children. And my kids think that every Westerner that comes is going to stay there for 25 years, and that doesn't happen. So when the volunteer goes, the kids feel abandoned a second time. So we now don't take volunteers because of these reasons and many others, but we do accept people coming for a whole day, playing games with the kids, teaching them English, just talking to them, putting on a concert for them, bringing them Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is a big treat, but it's just a day where real relationships can't be formed and be destructive for the kids in the future. But you'll find anywhere you go now, they're stopping volunteers. Schools, colleges, universities, they're stopping it. UNICEF is putting the pressure on all of us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's hear another one from this side, just here.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Jackson. I'm from Tanzania, but I'm studying in Taiwan. So I flew up from Taiwan to here. Well, I'm quite familiar with the program that your foundation does, especially in Africa, like humanitarian issues, because once in a while I'm a member in one of the most famous club under the Jane Goodall Institute, which is Roots and Shoes. So we have been doing some similar programs as you do. So my question goes straight to the wells that you construct in Africa, because I'm really concerned about the environment, especially the water quality and climate change. So I want to know, how do you and your great team ensure and monitor and to preserve the water quality of the ground well you construct?
Okay. We put aside a certain amount of our donation to build wells in villages, because some of the villages just close by to us, they drink, wash, cook in ponds and polluted rivers. So there's a huge amount of gastro problems in the village. So the village near us, it's got 400 or 500 people in it, and we've provided 4 wells where they can get clean water, and it's changed the life of the whole village. So if you can, and it costs about $300 to build a really good well. But then the problem with that is, if after a couple of years there's a breakdown in the well, they don't have the money to repair it. But we do what we can to put wells in villages where the people are really sick. So put your money towards digging wells, pumps. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Geraldine, I'll take you over this side and we'll take a question over here.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth from Temasek Polytechnic in Singapore.
Sorry, I can't see you. Where? Oh yeah, tiny little thing. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Elizabeth from Temasek Polytechnic in Singapore. Firstly, thank you so much for coming to speak to us. Secondly, you were sharing about the...
Can you speak up a little louder? I can't hear very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were sharing
That's
about the trafficking of disabled children in Cambodia, and I was really wondering what can be done about it and what can we do about it?
Kill the police. I'm serious. Any man that has the desire to have sex with a disabled child and to give a percentage of the profit that they pay to the police deserved everything the world can do to them. I can't do anything about it. I can't control the police, they're very powerful. But I've seen this book of kids, double amputees from landmines, blind kids, kids that are like out of it with cerebral palsy. And it's beyond my imagination that any human being would want to make these children's lives more miserable. But there's business in it. And anything that can make money, no matter how, is going to happen in Cambodia. Sorry.
I see.
I don't have any police friends.
Thank you.
We'll take another one from this side now.
They also take percentage from the brothels as well.
My name is Ratin. I'm from Western University in Australia. And I want to firstly thank you for being such an amazing person and giving such an inspirational talk today. So I truly believe that selfless human connection and unconditional love can empower individuals to make their own change and give them the confidence to persevere through such difficult circumstances and do great things in their life. But my question is, just like how you changed your life and decided to dedicate your life to serve the children, how can we inspire the wealthy people, the financially wealthy people who are very well off, to have a charitable mindset and to have the wealth of selflessness and love, and to serve others and to uplift our brothers and sisters who are in such difficult conditions.
This is one of the biggest challenges I have, is to make people want to give. I never gave for 50 years, not $1 to save the children, the World Vision, nothing. And it wasn't until I saw the first group of children in Cambodia, it was like a lightning bolt in my head. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Everybody in their life will come up against some kind of situation that will make them feel kind and giving. And then it's up to them to act on it. But not enough do. But something has to happen in your life to make you think about others than yourself. And I can't tell you, I thought all the material things that I had was fabulous, and it was. I enjoyed every minute of it. But the joy you get from giving, just from giving, I can't explain it. It supersedes any other emotion, the joy you get from giving. And how do you make people like you and other rich people understand what they're going to get back from giving? And that's what I'm trying to do here today.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Geraldine. My name is Ella. I'm representing the University of Glasgow. And I wanted to thank you for the amazing, amazing work that you do, first of all. I also wanted to ask, what was your experience with rebuilding trust with such a thoroughly traumatized community at large? And how did you tap into those social avenues and those opportunities to really fully exploit to make your work so
Some
amazing?
of the kids that are brought to us, head lice, broken arms that parents didn't have the money to reset, so they've got deformed arms and legs, infected mosquito bites. Kids in shocking conditions are brought to us. And when the authorities bring the kids, I lean down to them like that and put my hands out to them, and they go like this, like a scared dog, because they've received nothing but cruelty from human beings. And some kids, when they come to me, it can take them 6 months to let me hold their hand. And it's different for each kid, but they're all afraid when they come to us because they don't know. What is sunrise? Everybody else in my life has hit me, neglected me. How is this place going to be any different? So I have to rely on the other children to say, look, the old girl's not so bad. She's not going to hit you. She's all right. And then sometimes there's a gazebo in the pond, and I often have a nap there on the wooden bed at lunchtime. And sometimes I'll wake up and a new child has come up and laid beside me while I'm asleep. And when I wake up, I know, okay, it's another one that I've won. But all the kids that come to us are afraid. And the only way you can combat that is to show your love in physical ways, as well as giving them food and education. You've got to look at them and have them know you care about them. Eye contact. In Australia, you're not allowed at school to even touch a child. You're not allowed to touch a child. If a kid falls over and breaks their leg, you have to call their parents. Now, if I was in Australia, I'd be in prison. I'm touching, cuddling, kissing, patting. When the kids come home from school, one of my biggest goals is to make some kind of human contact with each kid every day. And the best way I can do that is when the bus comes home from school, they get off the bus and they're coming off in like 2 and 3 at a time, and I can't remember each name as they come off. So when they come off, I'll pat one on the bum and I'll clap another one on the head, I'll slap one on the shoulder and say, hello gorgeous, hello beautiful, and you go to lunch. But I make sure that each kid has had at least eye contact or touch with me in some way. As kids, we all need to be touched. I think it's a bloody crime that internationally it's now a crime to touch a child in a loving, caring way. I would be in prison in Australia, but I'm not stopping what I'm doing. How can you? These kids need to be touched.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll take one more from here.
Okay. Hi, my name is Abdul Rashid. I'm a Nigerian. I represent University Technology Petronas. As a matter of fact, I'm deeply moved by this your speech. Permit me to say that you are more than a grandmother to this symposium. I think you are a figure to this symposium. I've watched from the first.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have watched from the first version to the 9th. You keep appearing. I look at something. You stood out with one thing. You truly motivate. You are one of the key reasons why I'm in this conference, to be specific.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
But I'm so curious. Permit me. I look at the stick in your head.
Cropped stick. You know how it happened? I used to have long hair in like a butterfly clip. And the butterfly clip fell out, and all I had was chopsticks. So I just licked it and stuck it in, and I thought, that's not bad. So now I at least have clean chopsticks.
Oh, because I'm kind of curious, what is this? How? You really stand out, you know, in the whole world. I've never seen someone good with this.
You need a gimmick. You need some kind of gimmick to be remembered.
Sure.
You know, it's marketing.
So actually my question is about it. I just wanted to know the history and what's it all about. What's the secret behind it? You look beautiful though.
Thank you. Every woman needs to be told that even when she's 74, so thank you very much. One more?
Plans that would not roll out using forces against to the self-governed island, which means Taiwan. I know there's a lot of people from China here, but I'm a civilian that I don't want I don't want war. And I'm really worried about if there will be a massacre in Taiwan, just like Cambodia does. So I'm living in a place that is actually a future potential war zone. So how do we people around the world can take actions and can they do to these potential war zones? So because we need to stop the things before it's happened. We prevent them, right? So what should we do, like around the world?
People just don't care enough. Like in Hong Kong now, the people care and having peaceful demonstrations because they care, but the might is against them. They can just keep on doing these peaceful demonstrations, but I'm sorry, it's not going to get them anywhere. History has taught us that the weak lose. I'm sorry. I wish it wasn't that way. I wish I could give a better picture, but the weak lose.
Sorry, China must be unified.
Thank you. And I'm like, thank you in good way.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Should we proceed?
Thank you.
Throughout your speech, you've demonstrated, at least in my eyes, incredible strength and incredible passion. And I would really love you to give us advice to all the delegates here, how to harvest our strength to put us outside our comfort zone and pursue really difficult and challenging tasks.
The universe, in its strange, mysterious way, puts situations in front of us. It might be to marry this person or to not marry this person. It might be to study this or to do this business or to become an artist. It will offer you choices and opportunities. You have to value these things that get put in your life in front of you and really give thought to how you're going to react to that opportunity, because it will never come again. And I don't know the kinds of opportunities you're all going to get, but they're going to come, and you have to be prepared to make the right decision. And the universe will reward you, as it has me, if you take the right path. I never dreamt, when I was working in Chase Manhattan Bank and earning $75,000 a year and travelling around the world, living in embassies, if you'd said to me, I'm going to be living in rural Cambodia looking after abandoned children, I would have laughed at you. But the universe, in 1993, put this opportunity in front of me. I could have walked away from it, but I couldn't, because I knew it was my destiny. And all of you will be put in a situation where you know what your destiny is. You just have to recognize it and act upon it. You will know what your destiny is. It can be just being a loving mother and wife and bringing up a family. You don't have to reach heights of education or business. You'll know what it is that you're supposed to be doing in this world. Many people go through their whole lives and they never know if they're doing what they should be doing because they're afraid of getting out of their comfort zone. That comfort zone, my life changed when I put myself out there. So try and do that.
Thank you so much. And we'll have one more question from this side as well. Can everyone please ensure that they're being quiet for this next question? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chuan. I'm from Singapore. I'm studying in Temasek Polytechnic. In a few days' time, I'll be returning home. And my question is, what's the best thing to say or to do to raise awareness for the situation in Cambodia to the people back home? Yeah.
Okay, one great way is I've started to make money from universities inviting me to give the speech that I'm giving today. I get paid and the money goes to the children. So if any universities here can talk to their professors about inviting me to come and speak, that's one way I can earn money to give back to the kids. So I'd love to come to Singapore and talk to one of your universities, or any of yours universities. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.